The Korean words cut through the polite chatter of the dinner party like a blade, a language I wasn't supposed to understand. Before we jump back in, let us know where you're tuning in from. And if this story resonates with you, please subscribe, because tomorrow, I have something extra special in store. My husband, Daniel's, voice, confident and smooth in his mother tongue, carried across our penthouse terrace. She's completely useless. What does she even do at home all day? I kept my gaze fixed on the Seoul skyline, the Seoul Tower glowing a vibrant orange against the fading twilight. My wine glass remained steady in my hand. To everyone at this gathering, I was Emma Park, Daniel's American wife, who had taken his Korean surname. The foreigner who smiled politely through conversations she couldn't quite grasp. The trailing spouse who had abandoned her modest marketing career to support his meteoric rise at Nextcore Industries. What they didn't realize was that I understood every single syllable. The younger man, Juno from product development, at least seemed a little uncomfortable. Young, isn't that a bit much? Daniel chuckled. That rich baritone that had first drawn me in 5 years ago at that Stanford coffee shop. What? It's the truth. American women are all like that. Can't work, just spend money. The apartment filled with the uncomfortable chuckles of his colleagues. 7 men in expensive suits, sipping Johnny Walker Blue Label from my personal collection, standing on the Italian marble I'd imported, surrounded by the art I'd acquired, all of them thinking I was just decoration. Arm candy. The pretty American trophy wife who had somehow trapped their brilliant colleague in matrimony. I turned slowly, my face carefully arranged in that pleasant, slightly confused expression I had perfected over time. Daniel, could you translate? I feel so left out. I allowed my voice to carry just enough helpless sweetness to put them at ease, to make them careless. Just work talk, babe. He seamlessly switched to English, his smile indulgent. Nothing you'd find interesting. I'm sure I wouldn't understand it anyway. I responded with a self-deprecating laugh, watching several of the men visibly relax. Tech stuff is just so over my head. That's my girl. Daniel came over to me, placing a kiss on my forehead, a gesture that felt more like a brand of ownership. Why don't you go check on the catering? Make sure they're setting up the desserts correctly. Dismissed like a servant in my own home. Of course. I smiled up at him, lightly touching his chest. The Heragildo Zegna suit he wore had cost $8,000. I knew because I had seen the expense report when his corporate card was charged. Company funds for personal wardrobe, justified under the vague heading of client entertainment attire. Just one of many creative accounting decisions I had been meticulously tracking. As I walked toward the kitchen, I heard the conversation resume in Korean. Faster now, more animated. Why do you even bring her to Korea? She's useless here. Dad told me to marry for the American market expansion. Having a white wife looks good. I paused behind the kitchen's frosted glass partition, invisible but perfectly positioned to hear everything. But it would have been better if she was actually a CEO's daughter. True, she was just in marketing at some small company, but her face was decent enough. The casual cruelty shouldn't have surprised me. I had learned long ago that people's true natures emerged when they believed you couldn't understand them. What they didn't know was that I had spent 2 years after college in Seoul, working at a startup incubator. I had lived in a gashawan the size of a closet, survived on convenience store kimbap, and become fluent in Korean precisely because I wanted to understand the business culture that was revolutionizing the tech world. That startup incubator? I had founded it. I sold it 3 years later for $40 million. And I used that money to start the venture capital firm that would eventually acquire a controlling interest in Nextcore Industries, the company where Daniel had just been promoted to senior vice president, the company he thought had rejected me when I had interviewed there last month. That interview had actually been my quarterly executive review, conducted through my investment firm's representatives. Daniel had been in that room, presenting his division's performance, never once connecting the American woman asking pointed questions about cost overruns to his supposedly job-hunting wife. Emma, the caterer's voice pulled me from my thoughts. We're ready with the desserts whenever you'd like them served. Give me 10 minutes. I smiled at her, then switched to Korean. And please have security record everything they're saying in Korean. It's all being recorded. Her eyes widened slightly. She was from the catering company I had specifically chosen, the one owned by a former colleague who knew exactly who I was. Asterisk na, aljasumnida hojangnim. Asterisk yes, understood, chairwoman. I had kept my maiden name Emma Chen for all my business dealings. In the corporate world, I was Eat Chan, the mysterious venture capitalist who had made a fortune identifying overlooked talent in Asian tech markets. My face never appeared in business publications. My name was buried under layers of holding companies and investment vehicles. When I had met Daniel Park at Stanford, he had been finishing his MBA, while I was guest lecturing on venture capital strategy. I had introduced myself as Emma Chin, marketing specialist, recently laid off and looking for direction. It wasn't entirely a lie. I had worked in marketing for the first startup I'd founded for about 6 months before I became CEO. But I had learned my lesson from my first relationship. The man who had proposed 3 weeks after learning about my net worth. The man who had started planning how to spend my money before I had even said yes. The man whose face had transformed from loving to calculating in the space of a single conversation. So, with Daniel, I had been careful. I had driven a Honda Civic I kept specifically for personal use. I had lived in a modest apartment near campus. I had talked about student loans and job hunting and all the normal struggles of a 20-something trying to make it in competitive markets, and Daniel had been charming, attentive, supportive in that way that felt genuine at first. He had paid for dinners, insisted on picking up tabs, and played the role of the successful MBA candidate dating down to someone he was helping. The proposal had come 6 months in on a beach in Monterey. The ring was modest. His words about building a future together were touching. I had said yes because I had wanted to believe I had finally found someone who loved me for me, not for my money. The prenup had been his idea. To protect us both, he'd said. I had signed it without comment, knowing it protected nothing I actually cared about. All my real assets were held in corporate structures he knew nothing about. The apartment we lived in was leased under a property management company I owned. The cars, the art, the lifestyle all purchased through business entities. We had married in a small ceremony in Napa. His parents had flown in from Seoul. His father was a retired executive. His mother was a professor. They had been politely distant, clearly disappointed their son hadn't married Korean. My parents, both professors at Berkeley, had liked Daniel's confidence and ambition. Everyone had been so happy. The first crack appeared 3 months after the wedding. I had come home from what he thought was a job interview to find him on the phone, speaking in rapid Korean. I had pretended not to understand as he told his friend. She didn't get it. Another rejection. I don't know how long I have to pretend to be supportive. American women have such fragile egos. I had stood in the doorway, my face carefully arranged in defeat, watching him transform his expression from annoyance to sympathy as he noticed me. Hey, sweetie. Tough day? That night, I had made my decision. I would document everything, learn exactly who I had married, and when the time was right, I would make my move. That was 2 years ago. 2 years of playing the unsuccessful job seeker while running my investment empire from my home office that he thought was just me playing around with a laptop. 2 years of watching him climb the corporate ladder at NextScore, never knowing that every promotion, every opportunity came with my approval behind the scenes. 2 years of listening to him mock me in Korean to his colleagues, his family, and his friends. 2 years of building an airtight case. Emma, Daniel's voice called from the terrace. Can you bring more ice? I grabbed the ice bucket, plastering on my most helpful smile. As I returned to the terrace, I caught the tail end of another conversation. Tomorrow at the board meeting, they're announcing restructuring. About 5 people getting cut. My hand didn't shake as I set down the ice. Asterisk tomorrow's board meeting. Asterisk the one where I would finally attend in person instead of via video conference. The one where Daniel would present his division's quarterly report. The one where everything would change. Thanks, babe. Daniel took the bucket without looking at me. Oh, this is Miho, our new CFO. Miho, this is my wife, Emma. The CFO, a sharp-eyed man in his 40s, gave me a polite smile. Pleasure to meet you. Daniel talks about you often. All good things, I hope? Kept my voice light. Of course. Miho's eyes flicked to Daniel with an expression I couldn't quite decipher. He says you're very supportive of his career. I try to be. I smiled warmly, though I'm afraid I don't understand much about what he does. Tech is so complicated. Daniel mentioned you've been looking for work. Miho's English was perfect. American educated. What field? Marketing mostly, but the market's tough right now. I gave a self-deprecating shrug. I'm thinking about maybe taking some classes. Reinventing myself. Good for you. His tone was kind but dismissive. It's important to keep busy. Asterisk keep busy. Asterisk as if I weren't managing a portfolio worth $900 million. As if I hadn't spent my morning on a video call with Samsung's venture capital division discussing a potential partnership. As if my hobby blog about tech trends wasn't actually a cover for the industry analysis I sold to Fortune 500 companies for 6 figures per report. Daniel, can I steal you for a moment? Juno approached, his expression serious. We should discuss tomorrow's presentation. Sure. Yeah. Daniel turned to me. Babe, why don't you go ahead and eat? Don't wait up. This might take a while. Dismissed again. I nodded, smiled, and retreated to the kitchen. Through the glass, I watched them huddle on the far side of the terrace, speaking in low voices. Daniel's body language was tense. Whatever tomorrow's board meeting held, he was worried. Good. He should be. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A message from my executive assistant, Lisa, one of the few people who knew my dual identity. Presentation ready. Board members confirmed. Legal has finalized the documents. Are you sure about the timing? I typed back quickly. Tomorrow. It's time. Her response came immediately. Daniel's going to lose his mind. That's the idea. I slipped the phone back into my pocket and began cleaning up the kitchen, playing the role of the beautiful housewife. Through the glass, I could see Daniel gesturing animatedly, his colleagues listening intently. They were worried about the restructuring, wondering who would be cut, hoping their political maneuvering had secured their positions. None of them knew that the restructuring was my idea, that I had spent 6 months reviewing every division, every expense, every employee, that the 5 positions being eliminated were strategic cuts designed to improve efficiency and send a message. And none of them knew that Daniel's name was at the top of my list, not for termination. That would be too simple. I had something much more educational in mind for my husband. The party finally wound down around 11. I played the perfect hostess, thanking everyone for coming, accepting their condescending compliments about my home, smiling through Daniel's casual dismissals. As the last guest left, Daniel loosened his tie and poured himself another drink. God, what a night! Did you see Miho's face when I mentioned the Johnson account? He spoke in English, his guard down now that we were alone. He knows I'm being groomed for VP of Asia Pacific. Another 2 years and I'll be in the executive suite. That's wonderful, honey. I began gathering empty glasses. You've worked so hard. Yeah. Well, someone in this marriage has to be ambitious. The words were casual, almost joking, but the edge was there. Speaking of which, how was your interview this week? I had had no interview. What I had had was a meeting with NextCore's board to discuss Q4 strategy and the upcoming leadership changes. But he didn't need to know that. They said they'd let me know. I kept my voice neutral. Emma, he sighed, running a hand through his hair. You know, I support you, but maybe it's time to be realistic. The tech industry is competitive. Maybe you should look at other fields. Teaching English. Maybe you could do that online. Teaching English? The suggestion was so perfectly condescending that I almost broke character and laughed. Maybe you're right. I set down the glasses carefully. I just feel so useless sometimes. Hey. He crossed to me, pulling me into a hug that felt more obligatory than affectionate. You're not useless. You take care of the house. You support my career. That's important too. Asterisk important too. Asterisk as if my role was auxiliary. As if I existed solely in relation to him. I know. I leaned into the hug, feeling his expensive suit against my cheek, smelling his cologne. Tom Ford, $400 a bottle. Another expense report I'd seen. I'm lucky to have someone as successful as you. We're lucky to have each other. He released me, already pulling out his phone. I need to review tomorrow's presentation. Big day. Of course. I'll finish cleaning up. He disappeared into his study, the smaller office in our apartment, the one he'd claimed as his workspace. He didn't know that my real office, the one I used for actual work, was in a building 3 blocks away under a company name he'd never heard of. The apartment's second office, the one he thought was my craft room, or whatever he imagined I did all day, was just a stage set. A laptop with a carefully curated browsing history. A desk with fake rejection letters I'd drafted myself. Props to maintain the illusion. I finished cleaning, moving through the apartment with practiced efficiency. As I worked, I mentally reviewed tomorrow's agenda. The board meeting was at 10 a.m. Daniel's presentation was scheduled for 11 a.m. My reveal was planned for noon. I had debated the timing for weeks. Part of me had wanted to drop the bomb immediately, to watch his face as he realized who I was. But the strategic part of me, the part that had built a fortune by thinking 10 steps ahead, knew that patience would yield better results. Let him present his division's numbers. Let him bask in what he thought was his success. Let him feel secure and smug. Then take it all away. My phone buzzed again. This time it was a message from my mother. Dinner this weekend? Your father wants to discuss something. I smiled. My parents knew the truth. They had known from the beginning. My father, a professor of economics, had understood immediately when I had explained my strategy. My mother, a professor of psychology, had been less enthusiastic but supportive. Playing games with people's hearts is dangerous. She had warned, even when they deserve it. I'm not playing games, I had told her. I'm conducting an experiment. I want to know if he loves me or the idea of me. 2 years later, I had my answer. I typed back, Sunday works. I'll have news to share. Good news. Honest news. I finished cleaning and headed to my supposed craft room. The laptop booted up, displaying the innocuous home screen Daniel would expect if he ever bothered to look. But I typed in the hidden command sequence, and the screen shifted to show my real workspace. 3 monitors worth of data. Stock portfolios, market analyses, communication from the dozen companies in my investment portfolio. Email from Lisa with tomorrow's final schedule. 9:30 a.m. Arrive at NextScore headquarters through executive entrance. 9:45 a.m. Brief meeting with board chairman. 10 a.m. Board meeting begins. 11 a.m. Daniel Park presents Q4 divisional report. 11:45 a.m. Restructuring announcement. 12 p.m. Introduction of new oversight structure. 12:15 p.m. My identity revealed. 12:30 p.m. Individual meetings with affected executives. Asterisk affected executives. Asterisk such a polite term for what was coming. I pulled up the documentation I had been compiling. Daniel's expense reports, with personal charges hidden among business expenses. Emails discussing confidential company information with external contacts. The suspicious stock trades that always seemed to precede major company announcements. Nothing overtly illegal. Daniel was too smart for that. But definitely grounds for serious discussion about judgment and ethics. Then there were the personnel issues, the way he treated subordinates, especially women. The comments in Korean he thought no one understood. The casual harassment disguised as cultural difference. The pattern of taking credit for others' work. All documented, all verified, all ready for review by HR and legal. My phone rang. Lisa calling on our secure line. Second thoughts. Her voice was warm but professional. She had been with me for 5 years. Had known about Daniel almost from the start. None. Good. Because I have to say I've been waiting for this day. The way he treats you makes my blood boil. He treats me exactly how I've allowed him to treat me. I leaned back in my chair. That's the part that bothers me most. I've been complicit in my own diminishment. You've been strategic. There's a difference. Is there? Yes. Her tone was firm. You've been gathering information, building a case, making sure that when you act, it's from a position of unassailable strength. That's not complicity. That's warfare. Warfare. Maybe she was right. Maybe that's what a marriage became when trust disappeared and strategy took its place. How's he been tonight? Lisa asked. Typical. Mocking me in Korean, dismissing me in English, playing the successful husband burdened with an unsuccessful wife. And tomorrow he'll learn the truth. Tomorrow everyone learns the truth. I pulled up another file. I've decided to go public with my identity, not just to Daniel but to the whole company. Emma. Lisa's voice carried a note of concern. Are you sure? Once you do that, you can't go back to privacy. I've been hiding long enough, and the company needs to see real leadership, not a mysterious figure behind a screen. I thought about Daniel's colleagues, their casual contempt, their assumption that success looked like them. They need to see that power doesn't always come in the package they expect. All right, I'll make sure PR is ready. This is going to make waves. Good. It's time for some waves. We discussed final logistics, confirmed timing, and went over contingencies. By the time we hung up, it was after midnight. Daniel's study light was still on. I could hear him on the phone speaking in Korean, probably to his father, discussing tomorrow's board meeting, probably celebrating his expected success. I stood in the doorway watching him through the crack in the door. He was animated, confident, gesturing as he spoke, even though the other person couldn't see him. This was Daniel in his element. Ambitious, driven, certain of his path forward. Tomorrow it all comes together. The Asia-Pacific VP position is mine. I listened as he outlined his 5-year plan. VP within months, executive suite within 2 years, possibly CEO within 5. He'd leveraged his marriage to an American woman to seem internationally minded. Now, he'd leverage his single-minded focus on work, unburdened by a wife who couldn't keep up. Single-minded focus. Unburdened. Was he planning to leave me? The thought should have hurt, but instead it felt like vindication. Emma, just leave her. If she wants to go back to America, I'll let her. Give her some divorce settlement and she'll go quietly. He was already planning the divorce, already calculating how much money he'd have to give me to make me go away quietly. The prenup would limit his exposure. He was explaining that I'd get almost nothing because I'd brought almost nothing to the marriage. The irony was so perfect it was almost beautiful. I stepped back before he could spot me, returning to my fake office. Tomorrow, Daniel would present his quarterly report. He'd talk about growth and strategy and his vision for the future. He'd impress the board members he could see, never noticing the one he couldn't. And then I would stand up. I would introduce myself, and I would watch his world collapse with the same clinical detachment he'd shown watching mine or what he thought was mine crumble. But tonight I had one more task. I opened a new document and began to type. To the Board of Directors of NextScore Industries. Tomorrow, I will be attending the board meeting in person for the first time. As you know, I have maintained my anonymity to focus on strategic decisions without the complications of public identity. However, recent developments have made it clear that this approach must change. What follows is a comprehensive review of the senior leadership team's performance over the past 2 years, with particular focus on ethical considerations and cultural fit with our company values. I worked until 3 a.m. crafting the presentation that would accompany my reveal. Not just about Daniel, though his case was the catalyst, but about the broader issues I had observed. The way NextScore had developed a culture that rewarded politics over performance. The way certain executives had learned to game the system. The way my absence as a visible leader had allowed problematic patterns to develop. Tomorrow wouldn't just be about personal vindication. It would be about course correction. When I finally shut down the computer and headed to bed, Daniel was already asleep, sprawled across his side of the mattress like he owned the whole space. I slipped in quietly, maintaining the separate territory we had established over the years. 2 people sharing a bed, but living in different worlds, except we had always been living in different worlds. He just hadn't known it. My last thought before sleep was of tomorrow's board meeting. Daniel in his designer suit, confident and prepared. Me in my carefully chosen outfit. Professional but not flashy, powerful but not ostentatious. The moment when our eyes would meet across the conference table. The moment when he would finally understand. I smiled in the darkness. Tomorrow the game ended. Tomorrow the truth came out. Tomorrow Daniel Park would learn exactly who he had married and exactly what he was about to lose. I woke at 6 a.m. My internal alarm more reliable than any device. Daniel was still sleeping, his phone on the nightstand showing notifications he'd checked the moment he woke. I showered in the guest bathroom. We'd long since established separate morning routines and dressed in the outfit I'd chosen weeks ago for this day. A slate gray suit by Phoebe Philo, structured but elegant. Louboutin heels that added 3 inches to my height. Minimal jewelry. Just my wedding ring and the watch my father had given me when I sold my first company. My hair was pulled back in a sleek bun. Makeup, professional and understated. I looked in the mirror and saw E. Chun, venture capitalist, not Emma Park, trailing spouse. The transformation was almost startling. When I emerged, Daniel was in the kitchen already dressed in his Tom Ford suit, scrolling through his phone. He glanced up, and for a moment, something flickered across his face. Surprise, maybe, or appreciation. "Wow, what's the occasion?" he asked. "Lunch with a former colleague." The lie came easily now. Someone I knew in California, now working in Seoul. Thought I'd dress up a bit. Looks good. His attention was already back on his phone. "I'm heading in early. Big day. Good luck with your presentation," I said. "Thanks, though luck has nothing to do with it." He grinned, that confident smile that had once charmed me. "This is all preparation and execution, of course." I poured myself coffee from the pot he'd made. "When will you be home?" "Late, probably. After the board meeting, there's going to be restructuring discussions. Could be a long day. I'll leave dinner in the fridge." He kissed me on the cheek absently, already mentally at the office, and left. I heard the door close, heard the elevator arrive and depart. Then silence. I stood in my kitchen. My kitchen in my apartment, paid for by my company, and allowed myself a moment of pure, undiluted anticipation. Today was the day. I finished my coffee slowly, watching the sun rise over Seoul. The city stretched out below, millions of people starting their days, completely unaware that in a few hours, in a conference room at Nexcore Industries, a small earthquake would shake at least one person's world to its foundations. At 8:30, I received a text from Lisa. "Car is downstairs. Ready when you are." I picked up my briefcase. Not the small clutch Daniel expected me to carry, but a proper leather briefcase containing 2 years of documentation, and headed down. The black Mercedes waiting at the curb looked like any executive car service. The driver opened the door without comment. "Good morning, Miss Chin." "Good morning, Park." He was former military, recommended by my security consultant. Discreet, professional, utterly reliable. "Nexcore headquarters, please." "Yes, ma'am." We drove through Seoul traffic, and I reviewed my notes one final time. The presentation was loaded on my tablet, backed up in 3 separate locations. The documents were organized. The talking points were memorized. Everything was ready. My phone buzzed. A message from the board chairman, Robert Chong. Looking forward to finally meeting in person. "This should be quite a day," I replied. Indeed it will be. Nexcore's headquarters was a gleaming tower in Gangnam, all glass and steel and corporate ambition. We pulled into the underground parking, bypassing the main entrance. The executive elevator required a special key card that Lisa had provided weeks ago. I rode up in silence, watching the floor numbers climb. 40th floor, executive offices. The doors opened to reveal Lisa waiting, impeccably dressed in navy blue, her tablet at the ready. "Good morning, Ms. Chun." Her greeting was professional, giving nothing away. "The board members are gathering in the anteroom. Mr. Daniel Park would like to speak with you before we begin." "Thank you, Lisa." I stepped out of the elevator, feeling the subtle shift in my posture, my presence. Emma Park, the uncertain wife, had been left behind in the apartment. This was Chun, the investor who'd built an empire by seeing opportunities others missed. There's been one development. Lisa fell into step beside me as we walked down the hushed corridor. Daniel requested a private audience with the board before his presentation. He wants to discuss his promotion to Asia-Pacific VP. I smiled. Of course he did. His confidence knew no bounds. And what did Mr. Chong say? That all personnel matters would be discussed after the restructuring announcement. Perfect. We reached the chairman's office. Lisa knocked once and opened the door. Robert Chong stood from his desk, a smile creasing his weathered face. He was 70, a veteran of Korean business wars, and one of the few people who'd known my identity from the start. Ms. Chin. He bowed slightly, a gesture of respect that would have confused Daniel to witness. Welcome. It's an honor to finally meet face to face. The honor is mine, Chairman Chong. I returned the bow. Thank you for your patience with my unconventional approach. Unconventional perhaps, but effective. He gestured to the chairs. Though I must admit, today's agenda is more unconventional than most. Are you certain about this approach? Completely certain. He studied me for a moment, his sharp eyes assessing. This will create significant upheaval. The executive team, the employees, the media, everyone will have questions. I have answers. And your husband? His tone was delicate. This will be quite a shock. Chairman Chong, my husband has spent 2 years mocking me in Korean, thinking I couldn't understand. He's discussed divorcing me to advance his career. He's called me useless, stupid, a burden. I kept my voice level. Whatever shock he experiences is entirely of his own making. He nodded slowly. Very well. The board is with you. Shall we begin? We moved to the adjacent boardroom where 15 board members were already seated. They stood as I entered, not for Emma Park, the unknown wife, but for Yi Chun, the power behind their positions. I took my seat at the head of the table, Chong to my right. Good morning. I let my voice carry the authority I'd been hiding for years. Thank you all for coming. Before we begin the official meeting, I want to address what will happen in the next few hours. As you know, I've maintained anonymity to focus on strategic decisions without distraction. Today that changes. Today you will all meet my husband. A few eyebrows raised. My marriage wasn't common knowledge among the board. A few knew, but most hadn't connected the dots. My husband is Daniel Park, Senior Vice President of Operations. He does not know I am Yi Chun. He does not know I am the primary investor in this company. He believes I am an unemployed marketing specialist who has been rejected by NextScore multiple times. Now I had their complete attention. Over the past 2 years, I have documented numerous issues with senior leadership, including ethical concerns, misuse of company resources, and cultural problems that have developed in my absence as a visible leader. Today's restructuring is the first step in addressing these issues, and today's revelation is the second. Ms. Chun, one of the board members, a woman named Sarah Kim, leaned forward with respect. Are you certain mixing personal and professional matters like this is wise? Ms. Kim, I appreciate your concern, but this isn't about revenge. It's about accountability. I pulled up my presentation on the main screen. What you're about to see is a pattern of behavior that has affected not just me personally, but our company culture. My husband is just the most visible example. I clicked through slides showing expense reports, emails, HR complaints. Not just Daniel's, though his were prominently featured, but a systemic pattern. Senior executives exploiting loopholes, creating hostile work environments, prioritizing personal advancement over company success. This stops today. I looked around the table. Today we announce restructuring. Today we introduce new oversight mechanisms. And today I step out of the shadows to provide the visible leadership this company needs. The room was silent for a moment. Then Chong spoke. The board supports you, Ms. Chun, unanimously. The others nodded their agreement. Not just acquiescence, but genuine support. I'd chosen my board members carefully over the years, people who valued integrity, who understood that sustainable success required ethical leadership. Thank you. I checked my watch. Daniel's presentation is in 45 minutes. I'd like him to proceed as planned. Let him present his vision for the future. Then we'll proceed with restructuring and... I smiled slightly. Then we'll have introductions. The official board meeting began. Standard agenda items, financial reports, strategic updates. At 11 o'clock sharp, the door opened, and Daniel walked in, flanked by Juno and Miho. He was carrying his presentation materials, his expression confident. He didn't even glance at me. Why would he? I was just another board member, one of many, sitting quietly at the far end of the table in my professional suit. Another Asian American woman in a room full of executives. Nothing remarkable, nothing memorable, nothing that connected to his unemployable wife. Mr. Park. Chairman Chong gestured to the presentation area. Please begin. Daniel launched into his presentation with practiced ease. Quarter-over-quarter growth, market expansion, strategic initiatives. He spoke for 30 minutes, his English perfect, his confidence absolute. He was good at this. I give him that. Charismatic, knowledgeable, compelling, and completely unprepared for what came next. Thank you, Mr. Park. Chong made a note. We'll discuss your recommendations during the strategy session. Please take a seat. Daniel sat, probably assuming his promotion announcement would come any moment. Instead, Chong turned to me. Ms. Chun, would you present the restructuring proposal? Every eye turned to me. Daniel's gaze was polite but disinterested. Juno looked slightly curious. Miho's expression was neutral. I stood, walked to the front of the room, and pulled up my presentation. Good morning. For those who don't know me yet, I'm Yi Chun, primary investor and controlling shareholder of Nexcore Industries. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. I watched Daniel's face, saw the exact moment my words registered. Confusion first, then disbelief, then the slow, dawning horror as he really looked at me for the first time. Emma? His voice cracked. What are you doing here? Working. I met his eyes calmly. Same thing I've been doing every day for the past 2 years while you thought I was unemployable. The silence that followed was absolute. And in that silence, with 15 board members watching and my husband's world crumbling before his eyes, I smiled. Now let's discuss restructuring. The boardroom had never been quieter. Daniel sat frozen in his chair, his face cycling through expressions so rapidly I could catalog each one. Shock, disbelief, confusion, fear, and finally settling like sediment at the bottom of a glass. Rage. Emma. He said my name like an accusation. This is insane. What kind of joke is this? No joke, Mr. Park. Chairman Chang's voice cut through the tension. Ms. Chun is indeed our primary investor. She has been since the beginning. I watched Daniel's mind work, saw him trying to reconcile the woman who'd served drinks at his party last night with the woman standing at the head of the boardroom. His eyes darted around the table, looking for allies, for someone to tell him this was a mistake. How long? His voice was barely above a whisper. How long have I been? Been Yi Chun? I pulled up the next slide, showing the timeline of my investments. 12 years. How long have I owned controlling interest in Nexcore? 6 years. How long have I known you've been mocking me in Korean? I paused, letting the silence stretch. Since our second date. The color drained from his face. Guj Museum. He started in Korean, then caught himself. What do you mean? I continued in flawless Korean, watching his eyes widen. What do I mean? You thought I couldn't understand Korean while you insulted me to my face for 2 years. Juno made a strangled sound. Miho had gone very still. Every Korean speaker in the room now understood the full scope of what had happened. The interview I failed here last month. I switched back to English for the benefit of the entire board. That was my quarterly executive review. You were in that room, Daniel. You presented to me. You just didn't know it was me asking the questions. This is... He stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. This is fraud, deception. You lied to me for years. I told you exactly who I was when we met, I said calmly. Emma Chun, worked in marketing, entrepreneurial background. Every word was true. You just made assumptions about what that meant. You let me believe. I let you show me who you really are. My voice hardened. And you showed me very clearly. She's completely useless. American women are all like that. Can't work. Just spend money. I quoted his words from the night before, watching him flinch. Should I continue? I have 2 years of recordings. The board members shifted uncomfortably. Sarah Kim was taking notes. Chang's expression remained neutral, but I caught the slight tightening around his eyes. You were spying on me. Daniel's voice rose. Recording private conversations in my own home about my own company. Yes. I clicked to the next slide, which brings us to restructuring. Over the past 6 months, I've conducted a comprehensive review of senior leadership. The results were troubling. I pulled up a chart showing expense report irregularities. Daniel's name appeared multiple times, but so did others. Personal charges disguised as business expenses. Lavish dinners claimed as client meetings with no clients present. Designer clothing billed to corporate cards. Additionally, we found patterns of information leakage. The next slide showed stock trading patterns that correlated suspiciously with internal announcements. Someone has been sharing confidential information, and someone has been making very profitable trades based on that information. Daniel had gone from pale to flushed. You can't prove. I can prove everything, Mr. Park. 2 years of documentation, verified by forensic accountants and legal counsel. I looked at him steadily. You've been very clever. Nothing overtly illegal, just deeply unethical. This is a witch hunt. He looked around the table desperately. She's doing this because of our marriage, not because of any real concerns. Mr. Park. Chang's voice was ice. The board has reviewed all of Ms. Chen's documentation. This has nothing to do with your personal relationship and everything to do with your professional conduct. We've also reviewed complaints from subordinates. Sarah Kim added, her tone professional but cold, particularly from female employees about inappropriate comments and behavior, comments made in Korean, thinking they wouldn't be understood or reported. Juno was staring at the table. Miho had his poker face firmly in place, but I could see the calculation in his eyes. They were all wondering how much I knew about their own indiscretions. The restructuring is as follows. I continued, pulling up the next slide. 5 senior positions are being eliminated, effective immediately. Those individuals will receive severance packages in accordance with their contracts. Additionally, we're implementing new oversight mechanisms, mandatory ethics training, enhanced financial auditing, and a revised code of conduct with zero tolerance for harassment or misuse of company resources. Who's being terminated? Daniel's voice was strangled. I clicked to reveal the list. 5 names appeared on the screen. Daniel's was at the top. The sound he made was somewhere between a gasp and a growl. This is personal revenge, he said, his voice shaking. This is abuse of power. I'll sue. I'll go to the media. You'll do nothing. I kept my tone level, because if you make this public, so will I. Every recording, every expense report, every inappropriate comment. Your career in this industry will be over. You can't threaten me. I'm not threatening you. I'm explaining reality. I closed the presentation. You have 2 choices, Daniel. Take the severance package, sign the NDA, and leave quietly. Or refuse and watch me release everything I have to the labor board, the financial regulators, and yes, the media. Your call. He stood there trembling with rage and humiliation, surrounded by colleagues who wouldn't meet his eyes. I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. The severance is generous, Chong added. 1 year's salary, extended health benefits, and a neutral reference for future employment. But it requires your signature on the NDA by the end of business today. I want to speak to my wife, Daniel said suddenly. Alone. I considered refusing, then nodded. 5 minutes in the room. The board members filed out silently, leaving us alone in the massive conference room. Daniel and I stood on opposite sides of the table, the physical distance matching the emotional chasm that had always existed between us. Why? His voice cracked. If you had all this money, all this power, why did you marry me? Why did you let me humiliate you? I married you because I wanted to believe someone could love me for who I was, not what I had. I met his eyes. I let you humiliate me because I needed to know the truth. And now I do. The truth. He laughed bitterly. What truth? That you're a liar? A manipulator? That you never loved me? The words came out quieter than I had intended. You loved the idea of me, the convenient American wife who made you look international, the woman you could control and diminish to make yourself feel powerful. You never once asked about my dreams, my ambitions, my real self. You just assumed I had none. You never told me. I shouldn't have had to. I felt the anger rising now. 2 years of suppressed fury finally finding voice. You never asked, Daniel. Not once in 5 years did you ask what I wanted, what I'd done, who I was before you. You just decided, and I let you because I wanted to see how far you'd go. This is sick. He shook his head. You're sick. Normal people don't test their partners like this. Normal partners don't mock their spouses in languages they think they can't understand. Normal partners don't plan divorces while pretending everything is fine. Normal partners don't call their wives useless and stupid to their colleagues. My voice hardened. You showed me exactly who you are, Daniel. Every insult, every dismissal, every casual cruelty. I just gave you enough rope. He stared at me for a long moment, then asked quietly, Did you ever love me? The question landed like a stone in still water. I thought about the man I'd met at Stanford, the charm and confidence that had drawn me in. The proposal on the beach, the moments of apparent tenderness. I loved who I thought you were, I said finally. Before I understood it was an act. An act? He laughed harshly. You're calling me an actor? You've been playing a role for 2 years. I played the role you assigned me. I just did it better than you realized. I checked my watch. Your 5 minutes are up. The board is waiting for your decision. What about you? He looked at me. Really looked at me, maybe for the first time. What happens to you now? I keep running my company. I step out of the shadows and lead visibly. I stop hiding who I am to make other people comfortable. I moved toward the door. And I file for divorce. The prenup protects your assets, not mine. You'll get nothing from me, Daniel, just like you gave me nothing that mattered. I opened the door. The board members were waiting in the anteroom, along with Lisa and 2 lawyers. Mr. Park will need an hour to consider the severance offer. I told them. In the meantime, let's proceed with the rest of the restructuring. Daniel walked past me without another word, his shoulders rigid. I watched him go, feeling nothing. No satisfaction, no regret, just a profound sense of closure. The rest of the board meeting proceeded efficiently. The other 4 names on the restructuring list were called in one by one. Some argued, some accepted quietly. All signed the NDAs eventually. The alternative was too costly. By 3 p.m. it was done. 5 senior executives were clearing out their offices. HR was already posting the internal announcements, and I was standing in what would become my permanent office, the corner suite with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Seoul. Ms. Chen. Lisa entered with her tablet. The press release is ready for your review. We're announcing your identity as CEO and primary investor, effective immediately. I read through it quickly. Professional, straightforward. No mention of personal drama. Perfect. Send it. There's going to be significant media interest, she warned. Questions about why you stayed anonymous so long. Speculation about timing. Let them speculate. I'll give one interview to a reputable publication, lay out my philosophy on leadership and investment strategy, and then focus on work. I turned from the window. What else? Daniel signed the severance agreement an hour ago. He's already left the building, and the divorce papers are being filed this afternoon. His lawyer called, fishing for a settlement. I told him to review the prenup. I nodded. It was really over. 5 years of marriage, 2 years of documentation, 1 day of reckoning. Over. My phone buzzed. A message from my mother. Asterisk your father, and I saw the news. Are you all right? I typed back. Asterisk I'm fine. Better than fine. I'll explain everything. Another message. This one from an unknown number. Asterisk you destroyed my life. Daniel. I blocked it without responding. There was nothing left to say. Over the next few days, the story exploded across business media. Mysterious investor E. Chun revealed as Emma Chun, former anonymous CEO, steps into spotlight. The headlines varied, but the narrative was consistent. A successful investor choosing to end her anonymity to provide visible leadership. A few publications dug deeper, discovered my marriage to Daniel, pieced together the timeline of his termination. They called it coincidental. I let them. One journalist, a woman from the Financial Times, got an interview. We met in a cafe in Gangnam, neutral ground away from offices and speculation. Why now? She asked after the preliminaries. Why reveal yourself after all these years? Because anonymity served a purpose when I was building my portfolio. It allowed me to focus on strategy without distraction. But Nextcore needs visible leadership now. The company has grown beyond what one person can manage from the shadows. And your husband's termination? I'd prepared for this. My personal life and business decisions are separate. The restructuring was based on performance reviews and ethical concerns that had been building for months. The timing was coincidental. She didn't believe me. I could see it in her eyes, but she couldn't prove otherwise. The NDAs held. What's next for Nextcore under your visible leadership? This I could answer honestly. We're refocusing on innovation over politics. Too many companies reward the wrong behaviors, who you know instead of what you contribute, how well you play corporate games instead of how well you serve customers. That changes now. The article ran the following week. Balanced and professional. I came across as serious, strategic, and completely in control. There was one paragraph about my marriage. Chun recently separated from her husband, Daniel Park, a former Nextcore executive. Both declined to comment on their personal relationship. That paragraph sparked 1,000 rumors, but no facts. Perfect. 6 weeks after the board meeting, I sat in my office reviewing Q1 projections. The restructuring had actually improved morale. Removing toxic leadership often did. Several promising middle managers had been promoted. The new ethics and oversight policies were being implemented smoothly. Lisa knocked and entered. Your 3 o'clock is here. Thank you. I straightened my jacket and prepared for the meeting. The woman who entered was young, maybe 28, wearing an inexpensive suit and carrying a worn portfolio. She looked terrified. Ms. Chun, thank you for seeing me. I'm Jivan Park. I applied for the junior analyst position. I gestured to a chair. Okay, here's the translated and rewritten version of the text, expanded and elaborated in a style that a native English, U.S. speaker would use to convey the nuances and emotions. Have a seat, I offered, gesturing to the chair. Tell me about yourself. She nervously launched into her background. High grades, 2 years under her belt at a smaller firm, ambitious, yet realistic goals, the typical interview spiel. But something in her eyes, it snagged my attention. A real hunger, a fierce determination. Why Nextcore? I asked, leaning forward slightly. She hesitated, just a beat, then continued. Because I heard about the restructuring, about the changes you're making. I've been at 3 companies where politics mattered more than actual performance. Where being a woman meant grinding twice as hard to get half the recognition. I want to work somewhere different. I studied her intently. 2 years ago, she could have been me. Hell, 12 years ago, she was me. Can I be completely honest with you, Mississippi Park? Please do. This industry, it's going to constantly underestimate you. They'll assume you don't grasp the technical concepts. They'll interrupt you mid-sentence in meetings. They'll conveniently take credit for your ideas. Some will do it deliberately, consciously. But most will do it completely without even thinking. I paused. It honestly never really stops. Her face fell just a little, but I pressed on. That doesn't mean you can't absolutely crush it. It just means you have to be strategic, document everything, build solid alliances, absolutely know your worth, and never ever apologize for it. I leaned back, considering, and sometimes, let people underestimate you. Their assumptions become your advantage. She looked up, surprise quickly replacing the disappointment. You're hired, I stated matter-of-factly. Starting salary is 15% above the industry standard for your level of experience. I smiled slightly. And I'm also launching a women's leadership development program. You'll be in the very first cohort. Tears instantly welled up in her eyes. Thank you, she whispered. I won't let you down. I smiled, a touch of steel in my voice. I know you won't, because if you do, I'll fire you. I softened the words with a genuine smile. Performance matters here. Not politics, not connections. Performance that cuts both ways. After she left, I settled back into my chair, gazing out at Seoul stretching before me. Somewhere in this city, Daniel was probably sending out resumes, trying to salvage his career. I didn't wish him any outright harm. I didn't wish him anything at all anymore. My phone vibrated in my pocket. A message from my divorce lawyer. Final papers signed. It's official. I felt nothing. No lingering sadness. No soaring relief. Just completion. That evening, I met my parents for dinner at their favorite restaurant in Hongdae. My father immediately stood when I arrived, pulling me into a warm hug. How are you, sweetheart? Good. Really good. And I meant it, every single word. Over dinner, I laid it all out for them. The party, the tense board meeting, the entire aftermath. My mother listened with the focused attention of a seasoned therapist. My father peppered me with strategic questions about the future direction of the company. I'm proud of you, Mom said finally, her voice full of genuine emotion. Not necessarily for the revenge, although I'll admit, there's a certain poetic justice to it all. But because you're finally showing the world who you truly are. Your mother's absolutely right, Dad added, nodding in agreement. Hiding your light doesn't serve anyone. Not you, not the people who work for you, not even the damn industry. It served a purpose, I countered. I learned things I needed to learn. About people, about trust, about myself. And now? Mom asked gently. And now? I lead visibly. I make decisions openly. I show young women like Jivan that genuine success is possible. That they don't have to diminish themselves to get ahead. Jivan, Dad asked, a question in his voice. I told them about the interview, about seeing a younger version of myself reflected in her nervous, determined gaze. You're mentoring, Mom said softly. That's wonderful. That's truly how we change systems. Not just by succeeding ourselves, but by actively pulling others up behind us. We talked late into the evening, discussing business and life and everything I had kept carefully hidden for so many years. Walking to my car afterward, I felt lighter than I had in years. My apartment, was quiet when I returned, blissfully empty of Daniel's presence. Empty of pretense. I'd completely redecorated after he moved out, getting rid of the furniture he'd chosen, the art he'd falsely claimed to appreciate. Now, the space reflected my actual taste. Clean lines, meaningful pieces, spaces intentionally designed for quiet thinking. I poured myself a glass of wine, not the expensive scotch meant to impress his colleagues, just a simple wine I actually enjoyed, and stood at the window, looking out at the sprawling city lights. My phone buzzed in my hand. A message from an unknown number. I almost deleted it, assuming it was Daniel again trying some new angle, but something made me open it. Ms. Chun, this is Jan Ho from the board meeting. I know I don't deserve a response, but I wanted to apologize. I knew what Daniel was saying was wrong. I should have spoken up. I'm truly sorry. I stared at the message for a long moment, processing it. Then I carefully typed, apology accepted. Do better going forward. His reply came almost instantly. I will. Thank you for the second chance. I blocked the number. There was no real need for any further contact. But I felt something shift within me. Not quite forgiveness, maybe, but an acknowledgement. People could change. Some would and some definitely wouldn't. But that wasn't my responsibility to manage. 3 months later, I gave a keynote speech at a major women in tech conference. The organizers had been trying to book Yi Chen for years, never knowing who I actually was. Now, I stood on stage in front of 800 women, no longer anonymous, no longer hiding in the shadows. I spent years letting people underestimate me. I told them, my voice clear and strong. Sometimes it was strategic, but sometimes, honestly, it was because I was genuinely afraid. I watched men take credit for my ideas, casually dismiss my expertise, assume I didn't understand even basic concepts. And for a long time, I truly believed that was just the price of success in this industry. Stay small. Stay quiet. Don't make waves. The audience was completely silent, hanging on every word. But here's what I finally learned. Diminishing yourself doesn't actually protect you. It doesn't make the path any easier. It just makes you smaller. And the world definitely doesn't need any more smaller women. It needs women who unapologetically take up space, who confidently claim their expertise, who flatly refuse to apologize for their hard-earned success. I paused, meeting individual eyes across the vast auditorium. So, my advice to you is this: let them underestimate you, if it serves your overall strategy. Document absolutely everything. Build your network strategically. Know your unwavering worth. But never, ever believe their skewed assessments of you. Your value isn't determined by their pathetically limited recognition. It's determined by your actual results. The applause was thunderous, shaking the room. Afterward, dozens of women approached me, eager to share their stories, their ongoing struggles, their hard-fought triumphs. I listened intently to each one, offered what genuine advice I could, and felt something I hadn't felt in far too long. Purpose. This was why I'd revealed myself, not for some petty revenge on one man, but for a deep connection with all the incredible women still fighting every single day to be seen, to be truly heard, and to be valued for who they truly are. 6 months after the tumultuous board meeting, I received a letter, handwritten and carefully forwarded through my lawyer, with a note confirming that it had been thoroughly screened for any potential threats. It was from Daniel. Emma. It began. I've had time to think, a lot of time to sit with what happened, what I did, who I allowed myself to become. This isn't an excuse. There simply is no excuse for my behavior. But I wanted you to know that I finally understand now. Not immediately, not even soon after everything fell apart. But eventually, the truth sunk in. You were right all along. I never really asked about your dreams. I never truly saw you as a full, complete person, just as some accessory to my own grand ambitions. I told myself that I was supportive, that I was a genuinely good husband, but I was neither. I was simply someone who desperately needed to feel superior by deliberately making someone else feel small. I don't expect your forgiveness. I don't deserve it in any way, but I wanted to at least acknowledge that you were completely right, and I was tragically wrong about absolutely everything. I truly hope you're doing well. I hope NextScore thrives under your leadership, and I hope you find someone who actually sees you, really sees you in the way that I was clearly never capable of. It was signed simply, Daniel. I read the letter twice, carefully considering each word. Then, I filed it away, not in the trash that felt far too petty, but in a drawer with other official documents from that closed chapter of my life. Acknowledged, processed, and finally closed. Did it fundamentally change anything? No, not really. Did it actually matter? Maybe. Maybe a simple acknowledgement of the immense harm caused was something. Not everything, of course, but still something tangible. That night, I had dinner with Jivan and 3 other exceptional women from the leadership program I'd started. We talked openly about their challenging projects, their current hurdles, their recent wins. They were all brilliant, incredibly ambitious, and utterly unapologetically themselves. No forced pretense, no self-inflicted diminishment. Thank you for this program, one of them said sincerely, her eyes shining. Thank you for actually seeing us. Thank you for letting me, I replied, equally sincere. You're changing this company, one courageous step at a time. You're changing this entire damn industry. Walking home that night, I thought back over the past 5 years, the meticulous deception, the detailed documentation, the incredibly dramatic revelation. If I could somehow go back, would I do anything differently? Maybe. Probably, actually. But I couldn't honestly regret the ultimate outcome. Daniel had undoubtedly revealed himself for who he truly was. Yes. But far more importantly, I had finally discovered my own true self. Not the woman hiding behind calculated anonymity and false identities. Not the woman constantly playing roles to subtly test others. But someone so much stronger. Someone finally willing to be visible, to be vulnerable, and completely herself. My phone buzzed in my hand. A message from Lisa. Tomorrow's board meeting agenda is ready for review. Also, Samsung called. They're interested in discussing a potential partnership. I smiled. A genuine smile of anticipation. Tomorrow. More challenging work, more incredible opportunities, and more chances to lead visibly and authentically. The brilliant lights of Seoul stretched out before me as I walked, a mesmerizing tapestry of stories unfolding in the darkness. Mine was just one of them, of course, but it was finally and completely mine, and that was definitely enough. 1 year after the game-changing board meeting, Nextcore announced record-breaking profits. The painstaking restructuring had worked. The meaningful culture shift was very real. We'd hired 300 new employees, launched 2 genuinely innovative products, and strategically expanded into key markets we'd previously struggled to penetrate. At the annual company meeting, I stood confidently before 2,000 employees and shared our bold vision for the next 5 years. No longer hiding, no longer anonymous, just fully present, unapologetically authentic, and deeply accountable. Afterward, a nervous young man approached me hesitantly. "Miss Chun, I just wanted to say, my sister was at your keynote speech last year. She applied to Nextcore because of what you said. She starts next week." "What's her name?" I asked, genuinely interested. "Sarah Kim. She'll be in the engineering division." "I'll definitely look forward to meeting her," I said, and I absolutely meant it. That evening, sitting alone in my office as the sun slowly set over Seoul, I pulled out a worn journal I'd started keeping several months earlier. On the very first page, I'd simply written things I've learned. I added a new entry. "Authenticity isn't comfortable. It's definitely not safe. But it's the only genuine way to live fully." For years, I hid because I was genuinely afraid of being used, of being hurt, of being diminished. And in perpetually hiding, I ended up diminishing myself far more than anyone else ever could. Daniel was a catalyst, not the fundamental cause. He ultimately showed me what I'd already instinctively known. That perpetually hiding doesn't actually protect you. That people will eventually reveal their true selves if you simply give them enough space to do so. That love built on deception, even strategic deception, isn't really love at all. But the real revelation wasn't ultimately about him. It was entirely about me. About stepping fully into my own power, about leading visibly and authentically, about adamantly refusing to shrink myself to make others feel more comfortable. I don't ultimately regret the carefully designed test I put Daniel through, but I do regret testing myself by habitually hiding. I wasted at least 2 years of my life playing a calculated role when I could have been living authentically all along. No more hiding, no more elaborate tests, just unvarnished truth, visible and uncompromising. That's the real revenge. Not pointlessly destroying Daniel's career, but building my own life openly and completely. I closed the well-worn journal and gazed out at the vibrant city. Tomorrow I had important meetings with key investors, crucial strategy sessions with my core team, and a scheduled lunch with the Inspiring Women's Leadership Program cohort. Real work, meaningful work, work I could finally own completely. My phone buzzed one last time that evening. A message from an unknown number. "Is this Emma Chin?" I almost reflexively deleted it, but something made me respond. "This is Emma Chin. Who's asking?" The reply came quickly. "This is Michael Chun. I think we might be related. I'm researching my family tree and found your name connected to my grandfather." I smiled, a warm, genuine smile. Life moving irrevocably forward. New connections, new possibilities emerging on the horizon. I typed back simply, "Tell me more." And somewhere in Seoul, in an apartment I no longer owned, Or maybe in a new place starting over, Daniel Park was living his own complex story, learning his own difficult lessons or not. That was no longer my concern. I had my own vibrant life to lead. Visible, authentic, and completely mine. Finally, the end. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories just waiting for you. If you connected with this one, you definitely won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss any future uploads.